welcome to the Limo show. I got Sam with me, Sam Overton. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. Sam Overton, that's how you
Yes,
pronounce
sir.
it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So welcome, Sam. Glad to have you here. We've been in contact together for a few weeks now. Actually, you met my friend in London. We have a friend in common
Yeah,
who lives in the same building. So
yeah.
it was fun to connect like that. But basically, yeah, I know you've been in the dating industry for many years now. You've been experienced. I mean, you've had all sorts of different results. You've coached, I guess, hundreds of guys around the world. You've been traveling the world. So yeah, glad to have you here. Glad to exchange with a coach as well, because I'm also, as you guys know, you guys who listen to this, you know that I also teach dating too, and it's good to have also another perspective, someone who also does this on the podcast. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's kind of funny how we met, but maybe we can get
Yeah,
into that a bit later. But yeah, he's a good guy, and we've been living in the
yeah.
same building for a while now, which is a co-living, co-working hotel in the east of London. So I'm out of there now, but yeah, it was a good experience.
Hmm. Yeah. Ah, okay, you moved now. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in Warsaw, Poland at the moment.
Okay, I love Warsaw, man. Yeah, Warsaw was one of my favorite cities. I've done a boot camp last year there. There's a club there called Sen.
Yeah,
For you guys who listen, Sen, great club in Warsaw. Anyways, Sam, can you tell us more about, like, for those of the, I mean, for some of us who don't know you, for the people who are just I mean, for the people who never heard about you, like, basically, what's your story? How did you get started? Like, what's your journey, basically?
sure. So I went to university in Nottingham in until 2015, right? So I was doing a 3-year degree in University of Nottingham. In the second year, I dropped out. So this is about 2014. I just like dropped out of university altogether because I had one of those like I guess you could say it's a dark night of the soul, like one of those moments where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Right? I'd broken
Mhm.
up with my girlfriend that year. We went to university together. We went to school together. Moved to university together. She ended up like cheating on me with the hall rep, the promoter of her hall, and I found out like through other people that was happening. So we broke up. I was completely lost, completely confused. I hadn't been talking to girls like at all before then. I just didn't ever see myself as someone that could do that. I thought that you were kind of
Mhm.
all you're born with it or without it. Some people were just charismatic, and I just wasn't. And therefore, I wasn't bad looking, so I would always like find something, but I felt like it was completely out of my control.
Mhm.
After the breakup and me just realizing that I didn't give a shit about what I was doing at university. I was studying like history of art, and it was mostly like East Asian feminist art from the late 1700s. I was like, what the hell am I
Yeah.
doing? So I just basically had to really sit down and just say it's like make or break. And most people have this as like a midlife crisis where they're like, what the hell am I doing with my life? I've missed out on so much. I had it when I was 20 years old, right? I had that. I was like, where the hell am I going? What am I doing? It's now or never. And so I basically started looking at Alan Watts, who's a spiritual teacher. I looked at a few
Yeah.
other like fairly early pickup artists. There was one guy in particular called Arashdi Bazaar, who he's like a Persian living in San Francisco, and he was a powerful speaker, pretty culty, but I was like completely. I learned so much, just about human nature and psychology and about charisma. This guy was like 5'3", like bald, tattooed face, and I was just like,
Yeah.
what? This guy is so confident and he has so much conviction that as a young 20-year-old kid, like I was almost indoctrinated there. I was just like, this guy is like, he was such a prominent figure in my life at that time, in the same way that Andrew Tate probably is to many early 20s guys right now, right? Late teens and early
Mhm.
20s.
Yeah.
So I listened to a lot of that stuff and I just started like fully changing my personality in an unnatural way, right? I would just start talking in a way that was completely unknown to my friends and people around me. So people were starting to get worried about me because I was literally in real time modifying my personality, right?
Okay.
around the same time everyone was working on university, what I did after I dropped out is like, okay, I know that I want to coach communication. Like I did this, I think it was Alan Watts who told me about it, but he's like, find out what you're good at and find out what you love. And whatever is like highest on that chart, X, Y, of what you're good at and what you love, that's where you should be spending your life, right? In that realm.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was good at helping people and teaching people. I was incredibly socially perceptive and socially aware, even, even in my early years. I was very, very aware of other people's nuances and when they were uncomfortable, I could just see it immediately when someone in a group was uncomfortable. So I knew I was very, very good with people and recognizing how people are feeling. And I also knew that like by far the most and only important thing in my life at that time was becoming like confident, right? Was
Yeah.
being more like this guy Arash that I was watching, right? And so I was like, okay, well, there are people out there that are teaching guys how to be better communicators, and they're getting all this respect and admiration, right? They're making money, they have power, and they're actually helping the lives of men who are like me, right? Who were like me before I made this spiritual transformation, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just game over from that point. I never had any questions or discussion. It was just like, this is possible for me to do. I will be good at it. And it's the only thing I want to do. And therefore I will do this or die trying. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, I think businesses are a little more accessible to people. If you want to be a drop shipper or anything, it's kind of like normal for guys to just be like, oh, I'm just going to start a drop shipping business. But like
Yeah.
back then, this is only like, 10 years ago, that wasn't normal at all. So the idea of dropping out of university and like just deciding that you're going to do this job that doesn't really exist was like, it was a big deal. It was like, there is no guarantee of this. You have no idea what you're doing. I knew that it was going to be difficult. I knew that there was no model that I could really copy at that time, or at least not an obvious model. And so, yeah, it was a big, big decision. But I started working at the university. I started working with students who had learning difficulties, and I was what's called a peer mentor. So what I would do is I would sit with them in dinners, in lectures, in community events, and I would monitor their behavior, right? So I would look at their interactions. I would see where they were making social errors, right? As you'd call it with ASDs.
Mm-hmm.
They would say something out of place or something really rude or really awkward, and they just don't know why it's awkward or rude, or they don't care that it is because there's no reason. They need to understand what is the result of them making a mistake, right? So I would be
Yeah.
analyzing their conversations and behaviors, taking notes on it, and then I would be creating syllabus, right? I would be creating models out of those mistakes that they were making, and I would teach them how to resolve them by explaining to them what would be the result of those social errors, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would no longer class myself in any way as an expert in the field of applied behavioral analytics and CBT, but for sure it would be something like my client would say something really rude to a girl, right? I would
Yeah.
show him why that was rude and how that made her feel, right? And then he would in many cases be like, okay, I don't care, right? And so then I would have to make the link between why he needs to care, right? So I would say, now she's going to go and talk to her friends about it. They are going to socially exclude you from future events, which is going to make you lonely and have less opportunity to date girls at the university, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah.
had to make that causal link of X behavior means that you're going to be a virgin for the next 3 years, right? And for a lot of people, that sounds extreme. But like in many ways, that's kind of how it works. They need to see the full process of why it is better to be good than bad, or why it is better to be nice than not nice. And in no way am I attempting to paint all autistic people as if they're like sociopathic in that way. It's not true at all. He was a very, very good-hearted and kind person. So it's not as simple, but very often you do need to explain that causal link, right? So I did that for about a year and a half. I learned how to build syllabus. I learned how to teach. I learned how to coach in one-on-one settings. I started focusing on helping him to meet women. So I would be going out with my high functioning client. He was autistic, had high functioning autism. I would take
Mm.
him out to bars, and I would go up to girls because it was so awkward that I would go up to girls and say, "Excuse me, I'm with my friend. He's autistic. He really wants to get some experience talking to girls. Please, can you be nice to him when we come over?" Right? And all the girls would obviously be like, "Yeah, of course." Right? It was kind of really sweet. So then I would get him into these conversations where he would actually be really charming because they knew that he was autistic. So they didn't see that any weird behaviors as, as really strange. They saw it as like, it's kind of cute. So we did that for a while. I started working with a few other clients with autism. And then I just applied for jobs with every dating coaching company in London at the time. And that was
Mm.
Cassia Noble, Love Systems, daygame.com, like hundreds of these big and small companies. Only one of them gave me an opportunity. And so I got a job with them when I was 21. I
Okay.
moved over to London and slept on a sofa in like the back end of London just so that I could come in and make like £15 an hour doing some coaching work. So I was between Nottingham and London for another year, just doing shift work with this company, living on sofas. Um, and yeah, essentially from there, I started, really learning the details of dating coaching. I started being able to apply the models I'd learned with my work with learning disabilities to neurotypical people, neurotypical men. I started getting my own private clients, and from there, the journey has been from
Hmm.
there really. When I started getting my own private clients.
Wow. Wow. What a journey. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy journey. So yeah, it started with the breakup and the phase where you had basically a lot of dark thoughts, etc. You dropped out, a lot of uncertainty at that time. Then
Yep.
it seems like you got a bit into spirituality with Alan Watts and therefore into self-development a bit. And
Yeah.
then, that guy, Arash, his name is Arash, the Persian guy.
Arash Diba. Shout
Yeah,
shout out to him because he was my first mentor.
yeah, then Arash, and then you got into more like dating stuff. And it's funny how you started coaching students actually who had some autism. You didn't really start with guys who were like totally like I would say normal. I mean, without any autism or whatever. So you start coaching guys like that more, and then you transition into coaching everyone. So it's interesting. It's interesting. But I've noticed like some guys, not in a bad way, but some guys who actually struggle with women, some of them, a subset of them, have a bit of autism. Some of them. I met some in calls. I had calls with plenty of guys who had a bit of autism.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
For sure.
yeah.
I mean, it's
So
very difficult to say where the autism line is, right? To some
yeah.
extent, we're all somewhere on that spectrum. We all have varying levels of autistic tendencies, right?
Yeah.
And there's good arguments to say that that's an evolved feature, that actually there was space for autism in ancient cultures and ancient societies, right? In the same way that there were probably space for psychopaths in ancient societies. Those were the people that would be there at the front line in war, not giving a shit. They would be able to figure out
Mm,
things that other people couldn't. So, rather than seeing it as just a deficiency or a lower realm of human experience, it's very much, I think, helpful for everyone to look at it as like, no, you have a reason for being like that. You had a purpose in ancient societies, the ones that created this one today. So
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a better framing to look at autism and any other mental kind of atypicality like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what have you noticed in guys usually? What are some of the things that usually when a guy comes up to you and he's a beginner and he's just getting started, he wants to get dates, maybe he has a job already or he has a business, but he doesn't really understand how to get dates. What are some of the main common mistakes or some of the main common issues that you've been noticing over the years, like the recurring issues yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there's an obvious, I mean, like talk about the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
80% is just not taking the first step, right? The first step being go outside, stand up straight, like make yourself presentable, like stand up straight, put a smile on your face, walk slowly in measured steps, look at the people around you, you're going to see a person that looks interesting at minimum and beautiful at best, and then you go and talk to them, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's amazing that as coaches, right, where your job is to teach the entire process of going outside to relationships, that over 80% of all the work I've ever done has been focused on getting someone outside their house and talking to someone. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, that is obviously, I'm sure it's the same. Well, I expect it's the same in your experience, but getting a guy to
Yeah.
just go talk to a girl is like the biggest step by far.
No, for sure, man. A lot of guys, I mean, the reason why most guys don't get dates is because they just don't go out enough. They don't have enough volume. They don't talk to enough girls. And so because they don't talk to enough girls, they don't have enough conversations. And so they can't convert. Like they don't have any dates. The pipeline is too small. It's like in sales, like they're talking to two prospects and they expect to get sales consistently. But no, you need to talk to prospects consistently. And I like viewing dating as sales, to be honest. And it's kind of the same thing. You have to talk to multiple, you have to generate opportunities, with people.
For
So
sure.
so yeah, definitely that's one of the main thing. And so for you, in your case, from what I understand, you mainly teach cold approach in London. Do you still do this right now? Do you actively do this still? Like, do you coach still in London, like cold approach, or you've transitioned now?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm traveling around. As I said, I'm in Warsaw now. I'll be in Cyprus
Yeah,
next
of
week.
course.
I'll probably be in Dubai in November. So
Okay.
I'm all over the place. But yeah, I still 100%, I still coach. I have a very different model of coaching to the way that any other coaches I know do. I think of myself more like um, the manager and like point of contact of my client's self-development, right? So most guys
Mm.
say like, I'm going to teach you how to cold approach so you can get better at talking to girls. I will say, what is your goal 5 years from now? And my client might say, I want to be dating in a poly relationship with two girls. And another one might say, I want to have a family, two kids, and a house over there. And I would say, okay, you want that in 5 years. Now, what would be 6 months, 3 months progress in that direction? Right? If we could say in 3 months' time, what would be measurable, ambitious, attainable progress towards that ideal goal? Right? And then we would break it down and we would say, okay, if you want to have a wife and family in 5 years, 6 years' time, what would be 3 months progress in that direction? Well, maybe it would have been to have gone on 1 or 2 dates with the type of woman that reflects or like seems like the type of woman that you might want to marry in the future and start a family with, right? And you can say,
Yeah.
okay, 3 months progress is like 1 to 2 dates with the type of woman that I would genuinely consider marrying or having kids with. And then we'd say, okay, what else? What are your friends like? How much are you traveling, right? And so instead of it just being about like, being better at talking to girls, it's like genuinely thinking critically about where this individual wants to be in their life, ideally, and then creating a roadmap of how exactly they're going to get towards it, right? And what that
Absolutely.
allows me
Yeah.
to do is not only use my skill set, but leverage the skill sets of other professionals, some of the top professionals in London. For example, for one of my clients recently, he signed up with me. He was extremely skinny, very, very tall, very, very skinny, and he had some problems around sex. Right, he had a lot of sexual insecurity, maybe some sexual trauma. And the first thing that I did with him was I got his testosterone levels checked. Right. With a company with whom I'm affiliated with, immediately we see that his free testosterone is very, very low. So we
Hmm.
set him up with the best personal trainer in his city on a 12-week program, right? To get his T levels up, right? To put muscle on the bones, to get his testosterone level up. He goes for styling sessions. He was wearing like dirty Asics, baggy jeans, and hoop green t-shirts, and now
Yeah.
he's dressed in like cruise style, right? Cruise yacht style. He's wearing like linen trousers, boat shoes, like linen jacket. He looks, he looks like a gangster. So we fix up his style. We fix up his like the biggest levers. The fact that he's incredibly skinny, very poorly dressed, low testosterone levels. Those are the biggest
Yeah.
levers that we can use to improve his overall outlook in the eyes of the women that he's interested in. So I
Yeah.
don't have this like one size fits all approach that a lot of coaches do, where it's like, yeah, I'm the cold approach guy. I'll teach you how to cold approach women. That's not what
Yeah.
your client wants. Your client may think he wants that, but when you get them to think deeper, It's like, why do they want that? Oh, well, they want that because they want to be a better communicator so they can have amazing friends, an amazing lifestyle, a great network, a beautiful wife, a beautiful family, and they can feel free when they go out into the world, see the types of individuals they want to meet, and know that they can make something happen, right? So that's the difference, and I think that's
Yeah.
why I've been able to succeed and been able to consistently work with high net worth clients as well as regular guys who just see my YouTube channel, is because it's about organizing their life in a way that's going to improve all of the most important areas, right? So I
Mhm.
would say that dating coach doesn't quite do it. It's like dating coach and like self-growth management, right? It's like, where are we
Yeah.
going? How are we going to get there? I will make sure that happens with myself and with the best professionals in your area.
Yeah. No, and absolutely, I agree with you on that. I mean, usually success with women for a guy is the gateway to self-improvement in every areas anyway. Because
Yeah.
nowadays you can't be just like a one-trick pony, like, oh, I'm just a guy who approaches women, but I'm not fit, I don't make money, I'm broke. Like you have to be full stack, right? So as you said, some of the main levers in the beginning is just like building your value as a guy, going to the gym, making sure you have a baseline of finance, strengthening your frame and your value, understanding like what are your goals, having clarity on your purpose, on your vision, stuff like that, knowing what you are and who you want to become. All these things, absolutely, those are the that's the baseline of everything. And this is also what my philosophy as well. This is, I think, some of the commonalities between you and I as well, is we also start from the foundations first as well. More like the foundations of like, there's a bit of noise. Is it? Yeah, maybe it was on your end or my end, but now it's good.
There's no noise here.
Okay, I don't know, there was something. But no, I was saying basically, yeah, starting with the foundations first. And then on top of that, obviously, I mean, if you go to the gym, if you dress well, if you feel a bit more confident in yourself and you have more clarity on who you are, I mean, that's also gonna transfer onto your confidence with women and your certainty when you speak to women. And obviously everything is gonna be better. You're gonna be seen as more attractive as well, and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, I like that. Um, Now yourself, I mean, you teach boot camps mainly, or you have also online stuff, online programs, or is it
So
mainly
I have my 12-week programs, right?
okay?
Which is what we've just discussed. It's about me solving my client's problems, even the problems that my client doesn't see, right? Most people have never really thought about like, where exactly do I want to be in 5 years' time? And it seems, again, it's probably from the work that I did with autism in the past, but it seems like we go into an autistic level of detail, right? It's like, okay, I want to be dating more women. How many women? Right? And they're like, I don't know, 2 to 3 a week. And I'm like, but you just said you work a 9 to 5 and you go to the gym and you want to hang out with your friends. How are you going to have time? The average date lasts 2.5 hours and costs X amount of money. If you're doing 3 of those a
Yeah,
week, that's 7.5 hours just on the dates. Each girl, the messaging process might take 30 to 40 minutes each. We're now up to 9 hours, right? And do you want to
yeah,
invest 9 hours in this? And about 1 in 5 of those dates is going to be someone that you really consider, or less is going to be someone you really consider dating long term. So that's 9 hours per week, on potentially 1 to 0. So you start like critically breaking down the time investment, the energy investment, and looking from first principles. What do you actually want? Because if you ask the average guy age 21, how many girls do you want to be dating? They're going to say, like, the average number is going to be like, I want to be dating 5 girls and I want to go on like 4 new dates a week, right? But when you
yeah.
actually break that down and look at the cost that that's going to have on
It's
the
not
other relevant
realistic, yeah.
areas of their life, the amount of women you'd need to talk to get 4 dates a week, and then follow up with, and then set up a date that works for you and her, and then show up, and then go home hungover and wake up the next day and go, it's not feasible or desirable, right? And what you tend to
Mm,
find is that when people have a really clear view of what they actually want and what it will actually require, there's no more illusions, right? The marketing goes out the window. They're not thinking like, oh, Andrew Tate has loads of girlfriends, I want loads of girlfriends. They're just thinking like, oh shit, no, that's not what I want. Like, I want to just find like a really good woman and like have a partner and someone to help me through life, and someone to like that I can push and she can push me, and that I've got these qualities and she's got these, and we can travel a bit together, and most guys actually want that, right? We'll
Hmm.
go through phases where we just want clout. We want the money, the girls, the boats, whatever. Every guy goes through that kind of egocentric phase where he just wants the respect of others, really, and power above everything else. But when you really sit down and think about what that looks like and what it costs, most guys want a really like a good life, a good partner who loves them, who trusts them, who's going to be there through thick and thin, good children, right? To love and to feel responsibility to and spend time around. And so like going into this and digging into this stuff is so valuable because
Yeah.
it either exposes what I've just said, or it exposes that you're the outlier who genuinely wants something very, very different to that. But in
Hmm.
either case, most of the time it's not clear until we do that initial work.
Yeah.
So that's sorry that to go to question. That's one of the things I do. The other thing is I've recently started a community, right? Because I obviously with my YouTube channel and the content that I release and the audience that I have, the vast majority of them are not qualified for the work that we do on the 12-week courses, right? The price point's too high. And I want to be able to serve them. So I've always done free calls with everybody, like free
Hmm.
connect calls, I call them, where like any one of my people who like my content and resonate with the message, they can reach out to me and talk to me on the phone for free. But past that, it's been very difficult for me to be able to serve them in a way that makes sense for me. And so now I've set up a community where everyone can meet each other because they so often have good conversations in the comments on YouTube. It's like, what are we doing? We need to like put all these people together so that guys who want to go out in London or in Canada or in the US, in India, they now have a community of guys, a lot of whom are in their area, that they can come on weekly calls with me, right? And get accountability, strategy, new psychological tools, but also to be able to connect with each other and go out with each other and really carry the community themselves, right?
Hmm.
And so it's a lot more than just the community. There's also weekly training resources, new content released every week, new tools coming out every week, like psychological and psychology and hypnosis based tools from my work with CBT that we release and implement on a weekly basis. But that's what I'm doing for, let's say, everybody. And then I
Hmm.
reserve the one-on-one coaching for guys who I can afford the time to work with one-on-one. Right?
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good business model too. Yeah, because definitely not everybody can afford to work at a high level in a high level program. So
Yeah.
for some people who want to still invest in themselves, it's a great way to make them come together and help them as well as much as possible. So it's a great thing. So now you have where is your community? Is it like a group on Facebook, on Telegram, or like
So yeah,
Discord?
the community element of it is based on Discord. So we've got the Discord
Okay.
community there where there's announcements and updates X, Y, and Z. But the course is hosted. I mean, it's hosted on Kajabi, but it traverses a
Okay.
number of different platforms. Everything is held on Kajabi, but there is like other technology involved, such that designing your ideal future, right? Designing the future that you want, like I talked about that I do with my one-on-one clients. I've made the same resources available to my community clients where they have the same psychology, like it's all based on research into the psychology of goal achievement. And so that program is available. They get their strategy and data tracker, the same as my one-on-one clients, like the way that you structure weekly progress, weekly goals that you set, then analyze the data and figure out what you need to modify. All of that is available for members of the community, and also a number of training resources, right? Like full conversation structure and scripts, like atypical ways of starting conversations, and
Hmm.
maybe the psychology of making educated guesses and assumptions about people as opposed to asking questions, right? So one
Yeah.
example of one of the tools that's contained within there is like most guys end up in question, like streams of
Interview
questions,
mode. Yeah.
very from what you do interview mode, right? But by making assumptions, educated guesses, you could call them instead, what you're doing is beneficial on two levels, because on one level, you are actually becoming the cause and not the effect point of the interaction. Very often, guys are trying to push the initiative onto the girl by asking bland questions so that she has to do the work and respond. And then a girl's like, why the hell would I respond to these like boring questions? You're the person that came over and started this. Like,
Yeah.
why are you asking me to take the initiative, right? And that's, in a sense, cause and effect. And so I encourage guys to use assumptions, partly because they're taking the burden of creative work on themselves at the start, right? If you go up to a girl and you say, I feel like, you better quickly figure out something, like some intuition about her, to finish that sentence, right?
Yeah.
So you're forcing your mind into creative activity to say, you know, I feel like you're a creative person. Based on your
Yeah.
style and your appearance, I get the feeling that you're in a creative field. Are you a designer, right? Or are you, you know, are you in marketing or something like that?
Yeah.
For a beginner, that's game changing, because all this
Of
time they've
course.
just been, like, hoping for the best, right?
Yeah.
Like throwing words out into the wind. Now all of a sudden they're forcing the burden of creativity onto themselves. But on the other side, those educated guesses actually stimulate the curiosity of the girl, because whether they're right or wrong, she's thinking, why did you think that about me? Right?
Exactly.
Obviously, if they're right, it's great. You guess something about her that's super interesting. It makes you seem like mystical and mysterious and insightful. And if you're wrong, she's still curious about why you thought that. Right?
Yeah.
We take it even a level deeper. There is this sort of correlation between, okay, let's say a girl is not a girl does not is not attracted to a guy, right? She's not attracted to him. Therefore, she's not interested in what he has to say most of the time, right? In a cold approach setting. But what happens when you spike her curiosity is that even if she wasn't attracted to you before, if she's now interested to know why you thought that thing about her, right? Her mind is tricked into thinking, well, I must be attracted to him, because why would I be so interested in his thoughts and opinions if I wasn't attracted, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, this open loop psychology where I say, you know, Limo, you know, one thing I noticed that's really unique about you, and then we get distracted, right? And I get pulled in another direction. Your mind is going to be stuck on that. It's like, Sam, I want to know what you thought about me, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm in quite a powerful position because I have your attention and your curiosity. And to some extent, there's a level of investment from you in me and not just what I was thinking, right? So there's this transference, right?
Yeah.
She's curious to know what you thought about her, but her mind
Yeah.
sort of translates that as like, you're interested in this guy, not just in what he has to say, right? So that's just one example of a tool. A lot of
Mm.
guys in the industry know, like, oh, it's often better to make assumptions than ask questions, and they'll like explain that away by saying like, everyone asks boring questions, so if you make assumptions, it's a little bit different, a little bit more fun, right?
Mm.
But when you actually look into the psychology of why that's effective, especially for beginners,
Yeah.
that's when you start to be able to unpack the psychology behind
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
communication on this level.
No, absolutely, yeah. And women love to talk about themselves. I mean, that's the main thing too, is like you know, if you can put the focus on her mainly and you can just like, because a lot of guys also, one of the biggest mistakes I see is they talk a lot about themselves and they try to kind of impress the girl. And one of the main things is like, let her like put the focus on her, make assumptions about her, let her talk about herself as much as possible. Because women are very solipsistic. They love it when they have the attention, whether they're just investing, they're talking about themselves. So that's one thing too. But I love what you said. I mean, the two things you said basically right now for the guys, just to sum up, is statements over questions. Usually, I mean, you don't want to overdo it too, because I've seen a lot of guys, they learn about cold reading and assumptions and all of that, and they overdo it. Like every single sentence, like, oh, you seem like you're an artist. Oh, you know what, I feel like you're blah blah blah, and every sentence is like a cold read or an assumption. So also, obviously, you can also ask questions, but it's just that, yeah, ultimately you don't want to overdo it and ask too many questions. So I definitely agree on that. And another thing is, the second thing you said, which is very interesting, is the power of open loops and I guess cliffhangers. Basically, it's a cliffhanger where you say, "Oh, you know what? You remind me of something," and then you don't necessarily say the thing, and you talk about something else, and so that it stays on her mind basically, and she wants to know what she reminds you of, or if you say, for example, "Oh, you know what? There's something interesting about you." but first, where are you from? And you keep it like that open loop in her head, you know, and then you she wants to know more. It's like a Netflix series. Like you want to know the next episode and the next episode and the next thing that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
So it's kind of the same thing you said there, and it's very very interesting. Yeah, to keep them hooked basically in the conversation, to make the conversation more relevant about them. What do you think about, you know, the importance of mastering cold approach, like for a guy in general? What do you think about the importance of that in general? How it helps in life in general, not only in dating, in business, in networking. What do you think about the importance of mastering it, especially for a guy with girls?
Yeah, good question. It's a nice way of framing that question. Look, I think that we have to look at everything on a macro level, right? So people tend to identify like social media, overly safe society, and a few other individual things as the reason why men are lost, confused, weak, cowardly, right? They say like, oh, it's because of social media. Oh, it's because of video games. Oh, it's because society's too safe. But these are all effects of just the cultural winds, right? The bell swing of history and the passing of time, and they're not the causes; they're the effects, right? That's how I see it. It's like the cultural tides change, and then you see the rise of figures like Tate, and you see increases in social media usage and increases in surveillance, and men who are, how do I say, more feminine in the way that we traditionally define masculine and feminine. They swing more towards the feminine way, and they've lost a sense of purpose and moral character and virtue and honor and dignity and all of the things that used to be so highly prized in society, right? These are effects of just the tides of cultural change, and they're not individual causes of anything. So I think it's first important to introduce that. Now, to come to your question, what's the importance of cold approach in the lives of young men? Whatever all those effects are, the cultural tides have changed such that we do have an increase in social media, which means that the generic qualities of our animal based attraction are massively distributed unevenly, right? It's a horrible way of wording
Mm-hmm.
it. They're extremely unevenly distributed, such that before it would be like, okay, there's a really tall, good looking rugby player who lives in this small town. And so he gets like 3 or 4 girlfriends in that small town. And then there's like kind of a nerdy dude who's like just, normal dude, a little bit nerdy. And he's got one girlfriend because he lives in that town as well, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like that rugby player guy that lives in that town has access to the entire world of potential partners, right? And so he's got like 1,000 women who want him in any one moment. And that nerdy guy has absolutely nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter where you live anymore. Social media has exposed everyone to everyone,
Yeah,
right?
it's globalized. Yeah.
Yes. And on top of that, we have the hypnotic effects of dating apps and pornography, social media, dating apps and pornography. The effect that in the past, when we didn't have those, the guy that wasn't getting dates, wasn't talking to girls, wasn't getting relationships, wasn't getting laid, that guy would be like at breaking point. He'd be out in the street, like aggressive, angry, like looking for it. He'd be hungry. He'd be passionate. He'd be like, I
Mm.
need to fucking fix this or I'm just going to be discarded. But
Yeah.
now we have hypnosis that makes it feel okay, right? You got porn, so you don't need to get laid because you can just use porn, right? These outlets have given us the ability to accept mediocrity and ignore the gaps in our life in a way that we've never been able to in the past, right?
It's an
And
escape. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that that expresses itself is guys are missing meaning. There's a crisis of meaning. That's it, right? And that's what depression is. Depression is a lack of meaning, a lack of seeing the point in any of this, like a lingering, low lying sadness that tinges every moment of your life. And that comes from a lack of meaning, like a lack of responsibility, a lack of effectiveness in the world, the ability to create change, right? So let me get to your question. Cold
Yeah.
approach, as far as I can see, is the most direct way of going out into the world and being a hero. right? And this may sound ridiculous to people that haven't thought about it at this level, but let's take self-growth, right? What have you got in self-growth? Okay, let's think of some of the buzzwords: meditation, gym, reading.
Journaling. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's all of these kind of buzzwords, right? Now let's
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at which ones are immediate and difficult as it relates to your place in the social world, right? Okay, so gym, yeah, it's hard, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes discipline, it's absolutely great. But you can go to the gym and not ever come face to face with an existential fear that drives adrenaline into your veins and your body and forces you to overcome something that feels like life or death, right?
Yeah.
Gym, reading still doesn't have that, still doesn't force you there, right? Meditation still doesn't force you there, right? Hustle mindset, business, self growth still doesn't really force you there. You can just do it all from here. We could sit down
Mm.
after this podcast and just work away and hustle. And yeah, there's resistance. It's difficult. Yeah, it's
Mm.
not easy. Not many people can do it, but it doesn't drive existential anxiety through
Yeah.
every part of your body, right?
Martial arts does. Martial arts
So
does
I was
too.
just gonna
Yeah.
say, there's two
Yeah.
things that differ for guys today.
Yeah.
There is war itself. There is martial arts, which is some variation of war. There is
Yeah.
sports, and there is cold approach. Right? Sports, I mean, like rugby, right? For example, or one of these
Yeah.
really high contact sports, martial arts included. Right? Those are all. That's all we've got. Now,
Mm-hmm.
out of those, war is not immediate. You got to sign up to the military. You got to do stupid paperwork, fill forms in, do all this nonsense, and hopefully, maybe one day you get to go out and fight for a country that may or may not even believe in. Right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, now that we understand so much about international relations and the geopolitical mechanisms of control, it's hard to be patriotic virtually anywhere in the world in a way that before people believed in their country, their crown, their king. We don't have that anymore because our countries have mostly proved themselves not to be worthy of our respect, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
next thing, martial arts. Is it immediate? No. I mean, you've got to train for ages. If you're doing Thai boxing or boxing, jab cross, jab cross, jab cross, roundhouse kick for months, right? That's the vast majority of what you're doing. And when you do go into, let's say with jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you get on the mat, okay, you can just tap out at any time. It's in a controlled environment. It's going to be like minimum 6 to 8 months before you get in any sort of semi-competitive fighting situation, right? So it's not immediate.
Yeah.
Most guys will drop out and stop before they even hit that point. So it's not immediate, right? The next one is sport. Yeah, it's good when that's why they have it when we're kids at school, right? You play rugby, but then 99.9% of guys who grew up playing football, rugby, and even some contact sport, as soon as they leave school, oh, then they got to go to university, they got to go to work, so they drop that off as well, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't bring you any tangible value in the real world. So we sort of consider sport as just like a pastime, like a way, like, oh, if I can fit in a football match, I'll do it, right? But it doesn't feel like a self-growth activity.
Yeah.
Cold approach, immediate, right? It's win or lose. You go out, there's a beautiful woman, you feel existential dread flood your body. You hear voices from your childhood and your past and the bullies that you faced at school telling you you're not good enough. You hear voices from the news telling you that this woman doesn't want to be interrupted, that any man that does it is a harasser and an evil specimen. And then you hear the
Yeah.
voice of God or the voice of reason or the voice of your true nature that comes in and says, fuck all of that off, switch it off. You know who you are, you know what your intention is, you know your own morals, right? You know your ethics.
Yeah.
Here is an individual woman that could be your potential partner. She could be having a shit day, she could be having a shit life. You have the opportunity to go and make an impact on this person's life, on giving them a compliment, telling them something that could change the shape of their day, week, month, potentially even life. The resistance is incredibly high, but there's nowhere to hide. You know that all of those voices are excuses, and there is just this moment where you get to act or you lose and face the
Mm-hmm.
consequences of that. It is immediate, it feels existential, life or death. It has very real consequences in the real world. This could be your potential future partner, or you could have your ego completely shattered at the start by her looking at you like you're a creep or shouting something at you. but yet you know it's the right thing to do. And I believe
Yeah.
very, very strongly that any man who hasn't been completely indoctrinated by political ideology knows deep down that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's very beautifully said. Yeah. So no, absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you on all these points. And what's interesting, you said, yeah, you have these voices in your head about harassment and stuff like that. And yeah, it's true that in this woke culture, in the culture is becoming more and more liberal. And I've noticed this when I went to London last time. I went to London last year. I hosted a boot camp in London with some clients, and even on the tube, on the subway, they say like, okay, if you notice some weird behavior from someone, contact us and blah blah blah. And a lot of women these days, like, I mean, a lot of guys are afraid to approach women these days because they don't want to feel like they're harassers. They don't want to feel like they're bothering the girl, etc. And it's a big one. And actually, we had one of my clients in the boot camp. He approached a girl, and the girl was a bit of a feminist, and she screamed on him, like she screamed at him. She told her friends like, this guy is weird, blah blah blah. And like it's crazy how these days, like, just approaching a girl can be seen as this crazy thing to do, or this can be perceived by society as a negative thing. You see what I mean? But you have to do it the right way. If you do it the right way and you're positive, you're uplifting, etc., obviously you're not going to have problems like 99% of the time. But definitely in our culture, there's more and more of that. Like I remember even in Montreal, like one mall has banned guys who do that. Like they have security guys who look up for guys who actually approach girls, and they banned it. Like they would escort you out of the mall if you did that. So some, like, in our culture, there's this also thing where people are getting more scared of doing it. What do you think about that too? Have you noticed this too?
I mean, yeah. 100%.
Yeah,
It's a very natural consequence. I mean, like I was
yeah.
featured in a BBC documentary very, very briefly, but I was featured in a BBC documentary a couple of years ago, um, about a guy called Addy A Game, who was. I'm going to express zero opinions on any of this because ultimately I don't know, and I just don't like having opinions about things that I just don't know. I haven't heard his perspective and their perspective, whatever. There was a documentary. There was a guy in Birmingham who was apparently going out and genuinely harassing women in the street. He was a pickup artist, and he would like film them coming up to his room and film them in his bedroom and this and that. It was
Wow. Okay.
massive fugazi, X, Y, and Z. And he got arrested, like taken to court. And there was a massive like BBC or Vice, it went on Vice as well, documentary about it. Sort of attacking a lot of these dating coach pickup artist countries, and they featured me in that documentary. And I remember at the time I was a little bit younger. I was about 25, I think, so 4 or 5 years maybe before. And I remember I privated every one of my videos that had an infield in. Right, my YouTube videos where I would demonstrate how to talk to girls. First thing I did, panic, private, 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 private. I was like, oh God, I could be next. Right,
Mm,
that's the effect that's happening at a low level on every single man when he sees a beautiful girl and he just looks at her. It's like she's on the tube. He's like, damn, she's pretty, right? And then his eyes, they glide up and they see the poster above her, and it says, staring at people is a form of sexual harassment or something to those effects, right?
mm,
Gazing at someone will not be tolerated. And they've created some woke word for that as well, right? There's like a
yeah.
woke word, leering. They call it leering or something. But essentially, if you look at someone for too long and they believe that that look was imbued with sexual intent or the desire to make them feel vulnerable, you have absolutely no say in it whatsoever. All of their definitions are based on the opinions of the receiver, right? So if you go up to a girl and say, "Excuse me, I just had to tell you, you look absolutely beautiful today," your intent is not taken into account. Her opinion on what you were trying to do or what your intention was holds up in a court of law, right? So that's
Crazy.
the
Yeah.
insane place that we've got to, is their definitions are so loose that it isn't even a discussion. no, this was my intention, was to make your day better. Well, I believe your intention was to make me feel vulnerable. Let's have a discussion. Let's put it to a jury, and let's see what the result. That doesn't even happen now. They've taken out your opinion on what your genuine intent. It's purely about, when you look really deeply into this, which I have, it's purely about the opinion of the person on the receiving end. And as we know, the opinion of the person on the receiving end of that comment or compliment is going to be influenced by the same media and messaging that's telling them that men are toxic by their nature, that men are bad, and that any communication with a man in the daytime with, gives you a compliment is sexual harassment. So it's like they train you to believe that men are dangerous, toxic, and that if one of them talks to you, you're being harassed. And then they take your opinion only on whether you felt that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
So it just makes it's like I tell you, Limo, blue is red, right? And then someone comes up and says, no, Limo, that's not blue. That is actually blue. It's not red, right? And then your opinion is the only thing that counts, and you've been told that blue is red, so it's red. It's like making people believe something and then only taking their opinion with what you've programmed into them. So it's completely insane when you look at it on the fundamental level. However, all of that is to say, I didn't want to go into that tangent so much, but I think for a lot of guys, they only hear the surface of these things and they don't get to go deeper. So I want to give a lot of our audience right now the opportunity to like unpack a lot of these big concepts that they're not maybe like able to do, or they just haven't had time to do in their own space. I want to kind of do that hard lifting for them. All of that is to say that I have never had a problem, and when I've been out with a client, I've never had a problem, nor have they. Right? So all of this surface level programming, right? You could call it like they put the woke glasses on you. I don't really like boiling it all down into woke. It's kind of a buzzword, but everything seems this way. I get it. I go to London and I see these things on the walls and I'm like, huh? And I see Victoria's Secrets and I know that they've now got all of these limitations put on them. They can't have too many women with conventionally beautiful bodies. And if there's a movie that has too many people of one race and not the other, it's all switched around. And like, what the hell is going on? Can we not just like live normally? Do we have to be constantly like poked at by this new religion, right? So I get all of that, but the point is, we're talking about it here. I don't experience any of this. This isn't my life, right? I don't see any of this in my world. All of the women that I spend my time around, right? All of my girlfriends in London, girls that I do events with every weekend, that I hang out with, that are girlfriends of my buddies, my social circle. None of them are like this, right? All of the girls that was in that building that I lived in with our mutual friend, all of those girls know what I do as a coach, right? I've seen my YouTube channel. They're all completely cool with it. They think it's awesome. So I don't experience it. So what I would say to a lot of guys who are in this category, like we've just given them this kind of like scary picture of the world, is like there is a level at which you create your own reality, right? If you believe your life is amazing, your life is amazing. Right? That's so important, right? If you believe that your life is amazing, your life is actually amazing, right? And in the same way, if I was nervous about talking to the girls in my building or my friends about what I do, so, I just like, I work in finance, right? And then they found out that I was a dating coach. They were like, he said he works in finance. Look at this. He's talking to girls on camera. If I had any insecurity at all about the work that I was doing, I could be a target, right? And some of the girls that currently love what I'm doing, friends, but people that I don't know that well, people in my building, you see my channel, they think it's cool, whatever. If I didn't have total conviction in the reason why I'm doing it, in my motivations for it, and in the results that I'm getting, and the good that I'm doing, I think that a lot of the people that know what I do would think I'm a whatever, add your buzzword above. So what I would say to guys is, don't be like I was when I got my face featured in that documentary for a couple of minutes and private your whole life and disappear into the shadows and watch your porn and go on your dating apps. No, you get to decide your life. And I can tell you from experience, if you say, no, not paying attention to that poster, it's propaganda, the women on this tube are not those women. The women on this tube are good people, they're normal girls. And if I go up to maybe not on the tube, maybe there's a lot of reasons why that could be risky outside of woke propaganda. But let's say
Yeah,
I go up to a woman in the street, you know, I've got to give her the benefit of the doubt that she's a sane, healthy, down to earth, quality woman, right? Who can think
correct.
for herself. And when you project that onto them, right, you project your belief that they are cool onto them, people bring out that side of themselves, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, you have to own it, as you said, and whatever you feel, she feels. Like there's this law of state transference. I'm sure you heard about it. Like whatever you feel, people feel, because we all have mirror neurons. So if internally you feel like, girls could feel like I'm harassing them, what I'm doing is weird, what I'm doing is risky, and you feel anxious about it, obviously they're gonna feel it too, and you're gonna find yourself in those type of situations. But as you said, for most of us, I mean, even myself, I never had a problem, to be honest. It was because the situation in London, it was a guy who was like 64 with me on boot camp, 64 years old, he has grandkids, and he was still approaching women who were like 20 in the park with me. And so girls were like, okay, who is this creep? Like, who is this guy? So it was a bit of a situation anyway. I'm not going to go into details. But yeah, definitely 99% of the time, it's not going to happen, guys. And you're never gonna have a problem, especially if you live in Eastern Europe. I mean, you're in Warsaw right now. I'm in Estonia. Here, you don't really have these problems. Maybe in London you have this more. It depends on parts of the world too. I mean, it depends on where you're at. But even in Western countries, usually if you do it in a way that's positive, genuine, and internally you feel great, it's never gonna happen. And a lot of guys use online dating as a crutch for that reason. They use online dating as a crutch because they don't have the balls to show up in real life, or they don't want to go through the uncomfort of doing it. That's what I've noticed too. A lot of guys are like one trick ponies, like, oh, I'm just gonna do Tinder, or I'm just gonna do Instagram. And it's kind of a way to also escape approaching women in real life. I've noticed this too. So you got to do both. I mean, if you're doing online, you got to supplement it with cold approach as well. Now, I want to go into something, Sam, with you before we wrap up. I mean, we can still go for a few more minutes, but like, how would you tell a guy to approach usually? More in a direct way, indirect way? What are the best ways to approach for you that works for some of your clients? Or like, if one guy, for example, listening to us wants to get himself to approach, what would be the best ways that you could recommend to people?
Okay, so for a guy who hasn't approached before, the resistance is obviously going to be much, much higher. So before I say like whether I would go direct or indirect, the way that I look at everything, I use metaphor because I'm a visual learner and I think a lot of people are and they benefit from having images, right? So the way I think about it is like your resistance level is going to be so high if you're the average guy and you want to start cold approaching. Because what you're doing is you're getting to the foot of Mount Everest and you're looking at the body of Mount Everest and you're saying, there's no fucking way I'm getting up there. How
Hmm.
fuck am I going to get up there? Right? But if you instead get to the foot of Mount Everest and you say, right, where's my first foot going? Okay, there's a gap there. Okay, where's my second foot going? There's a gap there. What now? Oh, look, there's a ledge up there that I can grab hold of and pull myself up. Okay, what now? And you just go step by step by step, just looking right in front of you at what's the next thing you can do. After some amount of time, you're at the top of the mountain. But if you had looked at that whole mountain and said, I got to get up there, how am I going to do this? Right? Started thinking about what it's going to be like halfway up. You would have been there for days already, freezing cold. You will have how many steps? 10,000 steps I will have taken. God, how am I going to do this? Just take the first step. So what I would say
Yeah.
to anyone who's thinking of starting up, who's starting out, is A, talk to a consultant, right? And I say consultant and not coach because just get on the phone to someone, right? Anyone who does a free call, talk to them, right? If some professional who's talked to thousands of women and taught guys how to do it is giving you the chance to get on the phone with them for free, right? That is what you should do first of all. Just get on the phone with them, tell them where you're about. It'll be helpful for you to just talk about what you're trying to start. And if they're a good coach, they're going to give you free help, right? They're going to
Mm-hmm.
give you some tips on what you can do. They're going to give you some guidance for free before they think about, inviting you on one of their programs or like getting you on a course or selling you something. So
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of the free help that's available.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I would say. And then just say, what is the smallest next step I can take, right? You're sitting on your bed. You don't want to go out and do cold approaches. What can you do? Okay, well, like go outside, stand outside. Done. Okay, I'm outside. No fucking way I can cold approach. What shall I do? We'll just start walking because there's no one here. Okay, so you start walking, right? You start walking. What the hell do I do now? Okay, well, stand up straight because we all know that embodied cognition is fairly well understood now. And if you stand up straight, your body is going to produce more serotonin, which is going to make you
Yeah.
feel more confident and energized. You're going to look more attractive to women. You're going to feel more attractive. So stand up straight. Okay, what else? We'll smile because there's a load of evidence to show that when you start consciously smiling, your emotions change along with it and you start feeling happier. So smile. Well, what now? Okay, well, start looking at the faces of people because you live in a social network, right? We don't think about it, but we are communicating all the time. When you're walking down the street and a woman's walking the other way, you guys are deciding 20 seconds before you cross paths who's going to go which way. You think that's not
Mm-hmm.
communication? That's communication, right? We're
Yeah.
communicating all the time with individuals, right? So start communicating on the most basic level, which is looking at their faces, getting a bit of eye contact, getting yourself out of this like insular, introverted world and putting your attention on the social realm because it is this energetic network that exists whether we notice it or not. Okay, what now? Well, now you're making some eye contact, maybe smile at a couple of people. Okay, what's the next smallest step? Well, maybe there's this girl handing out flyers, so she's talking to everyone, so it's not weird to talk to her. So maybe you'll go and ask her for directions somewhere. Okay, done. Now you're on the way
Mm-hmm.
to directions and you see a pretty girl. What are you going to do? Okay, this is where the step maybe gets a bit bigger, right? Maybe you want to go up and ask her for directions, right? But this is where it will start to get a little harder, but you just keep taking the first step, right?
Mm-hmm.
After some amount of these first steps, you talk to a granny, you talk to a girl flyering, you asked directions from a pretty girl, then you gave one girl who maybe wasn't too intimidating a compliment on her clothes. Okay, now you're at the stage where it's like you're getting to the point where you do a cold approach, right? For a lot of guys, they won't do it on their first time. Like it's not the first step to go up and give a direct compliment. So like asking for
Mm-hmm.
directions is an intermediate step between those two. When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to just being a beginner, you've got to learn how to do a direct approach. Not because I believe it's the best way or the fundamental way or the only way, but it's because if you have developed up until this point as a man who is unable to make himself vulnerable by giving someone else a completely unrequited compliment, unrequited is in you're not expecting anything from it, you're putting yourself in this vulnerable position, you're dropping your ego and telling someone that they look really good with no expectation or knowledge of how they're going to respond. It's not that I think direct approaches are the best. It's just that that's the next obstacle. If you haven't
Yeah.
developed the ability to give a compliment to a girl you like, you have to develop that ability. It might be better that in time, it might be better to say something else, to make a joke or to do something situational, right? Based on the context and the specific moment. But we got to address the next step. And if you can't give someone a compliment, you better fucking learn how to do that because that's a fundamental life skill in and of itself,
Yeah.
right? If you do all of this, you just take the next step and take the next step and take the next step, and then one day you just couldn't even do that cold approach, right? And you're like beating yourself up, and you're like, I went out, it's the third day I've been out, and I still haven't done a direct approach, right? This is where most people drop out. This is where most guys give up. They say it's been 3 days, I've tried everything, it's not going to work, give up. What you have to do is remember that you live inside your head. You're the only person. You live inside your experience. There's no one else that can actually help you. Guide other voices can guide you, but it's ultimately down to you. And you have to be your own best friend. Like you have to treat yourself like you're in partnership with yourself. And you have to say, dude, we didn't get it today. It didn't work out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to the drawing board. Let's make it happen tomorrow. Now, what
Yeah.
went wrong in my morning? Did I follow my routine? Did I meditate? Did I drink my water? Did I go to the gym? Did I calm myself down on the public transport to get here? Did I start by giving compliments and then move into the more difficult stuff? Like, what went on with the strategy for today, and where did it go wrong, and how can I fix it? How can we fix it for tomorrow? Right? And then
Mhm.
tomorrow, let's go get it. Right? Let's go get it. Let's make it happen. And if it doesn't work for tomorrow, you just do the same thing, right? It's patience. It's like patience with
Yeah.
yourself. And I promise you, anyone that's listening, if you do that when it goes badly, right? You make a bit of progress, you get all excited, then you have a bad day and you get all pissed off. You're like this like emotional, like randomly controlled by your emotions, right? That is not a strong masculine quality for a man to have. You've got to be able to tolerate and deal with your emotional changes, right? That's super important for energy levels with cold approach as well. A lot of my clients, they go out, they get their first number and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They get overexcited. I'm like, bro, congratulations. It's great progress, but it's completely irrelevant. Drop it. Get excited about that later. Right now, you need your energy, and getting wrapped up in this girl and what you're going to message her and how amazing it is going to drain your energy. And it's going to give you this expectation for the next one. It's going to give you this more resistance for the next one. Because you're going to be like, oh, I'm doing so well now. I don't want to mess up my flow by doing badly. I want to go home with
Mm.
this win, right? And preserve my win, right? So what I say to all my clients is the highs and the lows are both dangerous, right? If it goes really, really well, then you're going to burn your energy, getting all excited and draining all your emotion, draining all your energy. If it goes badly, you're going to think like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm dressed wrong. I must smell. I'm not good at this. These girls don't want to talk to me. You're going to tire yourself out. The best thing you can do is drop it all. It's like it goes well, great, cool, feedback, drop it, move on to the next one, great, cool. And this is such an important skill to nurture, is saying
Yeah.
like stoic mentality of like, if things are going really well, they're going to go badly in the future. If things are going really badly, don't worry, they're about to get better. And just riding the middle line, right?
Mm.
Riding the low highs and the low lows, and getting through it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, even in business, a lot of guys they make a sale and they're all excited and they feel like they're succeed, and so they get complacent the next day and they don't do as much. And like success can lead to complacency, and complete complacency leads to failure at some point. And so like Andrew Tate also said it. I mean, we talked about Tate. He says every day it's almost like he starts at zero. You start at zero every day, and you have to make money, and you have to hustle, and you have to be hungry all the time. Don't get overly excited once you make money. Keep hustling. Keep starting at zero. Every day you start at zero, and you build it up, and you take the right actions. Almost as if you didn't make money the past day. You see what I mean? Like you always start at zero, and it's kind of the same thing, I guess, that you're trying to say here too. Is like when you get a number or something, don't get overly excited about it. Be stoic. It's fine. It's cool. Expect that sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to succeed as well. But always keep, iterating and improving, and yeah, developing that stoicism too. I like that. But we're coming back to the question. Yeah. So you say to guys basically they have to kind of baby step it in the beginning, especially if they're beginners. In the beginning, you say that yeah, it's better if they start just by taking walks, by talking to even unattractive people or people in general, just to build that social momentum. And then at some point, once they muster up the confidence to talk to people, they can talk to girls in a way that's more direct, like beautiful girls. That's what you say. Start small, basically, and build the momentum.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that's exactly it. I'd just go a little bit further and say the smallest, right? Think about it like that. Like, think about it like not just take small steps forward, but like, because a lot of guys convince themselves that, oh, the steps are too big even now, I just can't. It's like, think of the smallest possible thing you could do, right? So if you
mhm.
go even further with, it's just like, you're sitting down, stand up. Now stand up and you can, however you want to break it down, right? If the next step is too much, make it smaller.
Yeah.
And like it's crazy because what happens is the momentum you get from just overcoming steps, it's like a to-do list, right? You start on your to-do list and the action of being able to tick things off makes you want to do more, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if you don't have a to-do list, you don't know, but you've done the same amount of work, you feel like you're still behind, you haven't really got anything done. But seeing it there and that you've done this and you've done this and you've done this and you keep winning, keep winning, keep winning, that's what gets you to the hardest steps. So when I say take the smallest possible step, I literally mean give yourself more opportunities to celebrate these small wins, because that's what's going to allow you to overcome the steps when they really start to, they really start to matter. Like going up to a
Mhm.
beautiful woman in the middle of the street in front of other people and telling her that she's absolutely beautiful. That is man, if you think about that step at the start, it's huge. If you break it down into 100 steps between the first one and that, each one individually is easy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of guys, they're good at approaching, but then they're not good at holding conversations too, because a girl is not going to fuck you because of your opener. And a lot of guys, I mean, they can have the best opener or they can be direct, but then they have trouble converting that into a romantic situation, like showing intent as well at some point. So yeah, I mean, definitely. What I recommend myself to all my clients is usually, I mean, if it's a cold approach in the street, you want to be direct most of the time. I mean, yes, you can be indirect if you want to practice it, because you're still not very confident to do it in a direct way. But then at some point, I mean, to not waste your time and to not waste the time of the girl, sometimes it's better to just be direct most of the time and show your intent, from the beginning. That's what I recommend. But then, yeah, definitely, there's a time and a place for being indirect. Usually, in what I've noticed in closed spaces, in confined spaces, like for example at the gym, or let's say you're on an airplane and you have a girl next to you, you don't necessarily want to be too direct from the beginning, because otherwise it's a bit awkward if she rejects you there. It's better to be a bit indirect, that like see if you vibe first, and then you can show more intent gradually sometimes, like in those type of spaces as well. That's what I've noticed too. So yeah, I mean, it's been almost an hour and a half now. About I mean, I we still have maybe a few minutes together. So yeah, I mean, what's the most important thing you've learned so far in your journey that has truly helped you? And what was your life like before learning it? And what was your life like after learning it? Do you have something like this?
Yeah, two questions. Let me try and think about the first one. What's the most important thing I've learned? Um, that's a really hard question because there's just so many
Yeah,
things.
there's so many things. Yeah.
But I think it's I, th- I think it's probably something. I mean, look, I'm just going to say something that I think is really, really important because I don't know what the most is. Like, arguably, it's like finding a really good mindfulness practice, but that's such a, it's hard to assess what kind of an impact different, breakthroughs have had. It's really hard to define what that impact is. But I think one of them is that, look, we all get into this at the start. Like almost everyone I know gets into cold approach because, like, to put it in the easiest possible terms, they want to get good with women, right? And they want to have like the opportunities for one reason or another to be able to date the type of women that they really like. And like, there's some insecurity inside of all of us, and we think like, I know I'm not good enough for that girl. Sometimes we experience moments where we just know that we're not good enough for this girl, right? We're not good enough.
Yeah.
And that feeling when you take it personally, like, I am not good enough, that is like the most insidious and destructive um, hypnosis, self hypnosis you can imagine, right? I am not good enough, right? That is like fundamentally your very essence is unworthy, full stop, right? So we got to be super careful. But a lot of guys, including myself, came into this with that sense, right? With a strong sense before we got into this that we're not good enough, right? I am this way. This guy is this way. Therefore, I am capable of X and he is capable of Y, right? And when you haven't done ego work, right? When you haven't really got into mindfulness and you don't fully understand that you're not your thoughts, you're not your beliefs, you're not any of that,
Yeah.
essentially the closest definition you can find to yourself is the open awareness behind everything else, right? The awareness that notices these thoughts coming in, that notices where these beliefs came from, that sees, hears, smells, right? That is the
Yeah.
closest definition to ourself that we could possibly have. right? That's the essence of what we are, is the awareness that notices it all, right? But before you understand that, so fundamentally you are good enough because you're just awareness, and so is everybody else, right? Everything else is just a bastardization of their true nature, right? I don't want to go too spiritual in it, but ultimately when you recognize that we are all the same thing, ultimately we are consciousness, we are awareness. You don't need to take any of that personally anymore, right? But I got into this believing that I was unworthy, believing that I was fundamentally not good enough. And so for the guys that come into it, what I would say, maybe something that I would have wanted to hear at the start, is like, I'm not just going to say you are good enough or you are okay, but I'm saying that when you take this seriously, and I think what we talked about earlier on in the call, this is the most immediate way, right, to engage your masculinity and to overcome your demons. There's a hero's journey intrinsic to our subconscious minds and to our lives. Like, the hero's journey is ever present in there. I want to be the guy that goes from normal life, enters a challenging and new world, conquers the enemy, like takes the girl, like comes back home with the hidden treasure, back to my home, having learned and changed and transformed myself. It's Joseph Campbell's hero's journey.
Yeah,
That,
here's true. Yeah.
the most accessible route towards that is cold approach, if you haven't already learned how to do that. And I don't think it's the most important. I think learning to do martial arts can be completely transformative. I think learning the discipline and going to the gym, watching your body get stronger, watching your mind get stronger is incredible. Mindfulness practice can take you, in your current seat that you're sitting in, can take you into another realm, which is just free from all of the noise and thoughts, and truly recognizing what you are beneath all of the corruptions of your awareness. That can be completely transformative. I'm not here to advocate cold approach like it's the secret elixir to life or more important than anything else you're doing. It's the most immediate, right? And right now, if you're
Yeah.
experiencing insecurity and, more importantly, any sense of meaninglessness or purposelessness, right? If you want the quick fix to that, right? The Adderall to your ADHD, the the cocaine to your cocaine addiction. If you want to, and I know that those things aren't good, right? I'm just saying, like, there is a fix right now, and cold approach is the one, because it's right. And if you're experiencing meaninglessness, good luck trying to sign up for martial arts classes, practicing 4 times a week for 6 months, and then following that path. Like, good luck getting through the first class, because you're in there for a long time before you start really experiencing anything that could be constituted as like a battle or a win, right, in the real world. Cold approach, it's you. You've got this one moment. It's random. It's spontaneous. It's unpredictable. Everything is against you. All the demons are at the gate. And if you can overcome them, you experience a level of freedom and energy and social freedom and openness and confidence and possibility that is completely transformative right now, right? Not in 8 months' time, not in 3 years' time, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think that it's the most important skill for the vast majority of young men to develop, because they also develop horrible opinions about women. Right? Women are all gold diggers. There's all these podcasts and media and
Red pill stuff. Yeah.
red pill stuff that guys who've never talked to a girl says, like, oh, another girl, X, Y, and Z. It's like, bro, you've never fucking talked to a girl. You have no idea what women are like. All you're seeing is OnlyFans models on podcasts that are specifically designed to make dumb women look dumb, right? It's like your opinion on women is formed by the worst possible interpretation of female nature. You've never gone up and talked to one in real life. Like, look at yourself. What are you doing? Go out there and talk to a woman before you do anything else. Like, it's the most immediate. So yeah, that's the final thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you seem to be super big into mindfulness too, etc. There's a great book. I guess you read it, maybe The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or have you read it? I think you'd love it if you, yeah.
I didn't. I read A New Earth, which was his first book, like 10.
New Earth
11.
also, yeah.
That was the got me off the mark. Look, I think, just quickly, I think with things like books, it's so funny because I get recommended books all the time, and I recommend books, and the responses vary so much. And what I've realized is, if you recommended me The Power of Now, and I read it, I wouldn't get it in the way that you're understanding it, right? And the same way, if I
Hmm.
recommended you A New Earth and you hadn't read it, you wouldn't get it in the same way because you already know about mindfulness, right? So
Yeah,
this is how it works with people, is like the first mindfulness book you read is probably going to be the one that you think is the best because it's the one that gave you like the greatest epiphanies, right? So
yeah,
no mindfulness book has touched the changes that I got from A New Earth, and that's not because it's the best one,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's the first one I read, right?
I
So
see. I see what you mean. But they all point to the same truth anyway. They all point to the same truth. And
yeah,
I like what you said about the self doesn't exist. I mean, we're not human. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're just a point
yeah,
of attention. And yeah, so many guys put labels on themselves, like, oh, I'm shy and timid, so I guess I will never be charismatic with girls, or I will never be confident like these other guys, or whatever. And they kind of like limit themselves into a certain identity, but ultimately if they want to get to the next level in their results, they have to kind of reinvent themselves, because your identity is not fixed. You can change your identity, you can become someone else. And society tells you, oh, just be yourself, just stay the way you are, stick to your roots. And that's why guys, they just want to stay stuck in the same identity. But if you take that other paradigm of like, no, you can be whatever you want, because what you are ultimately is just a construction of your past stories and your past thoughts. And ultimately, like, your results are a byproduct of your thoughts, actions, and choices in life. And so you can change your identity at any time. That's the thing. And most guys, unfortunately, they get stuck into certain labels and certain identity, and that limits their results. And that's unfortunate. And until
yeah.
they learn how to transcend their identity, they're not going to get the results they want, even though they read all the books, they watch all the videos, they learn
Sure.
all the techniques. It's still not going to work.
Yeah, it just comes again. We talked about it at the start, but it just comes down
Yeah,
a lot to just belief, right? If you believe that you're able to make transformative changes in your life, you're going to make transformative changes in your life. If you let the doubt creep in, like, oh no, this was all a scam, like it doesn't work, you can't actually change your life, you can't actually improve yourself, then you're destined not to do it. A lot of it does come down to the reality that you decide to live in. Exactly the same as London. Some guys are going out scared to even look at women. I'm going out and doing whatever the fuck I want and knowing that I'm okay because I believe that these women are all on my side, right? I believe that every woman
yeah.
I talk to is a woman. You know, she's got me. She's going to be a cool girl. And some of them prove themselves not to be that way, right? And that's okay. Okay, well, I thought she would be, but she's not. But damn, that's a hell of a lot better way to see it than like these women are all toxic, feminists, and I'm scared to talk to any of them, so I'll get arrested. It's such a dumb belief system to adopt.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thanks for sharing everything you shared so far. I mean, it was very interesting to discuss with you and have your points of view on all the things. Maybe you have like a final thought, or maybe there's a question you would have liked me to ask you, but I didn't ask you. Is there a final thought you want to finish with before we wrap up? And then also, obviously, we'll talk about like where people can find you and all of that. But do you have like one final thought and something you want to share with people?
Actually, no, we went into some stuff that I wasn't expecting to go into already. So, like, to be honest, no, I think we've already over delivered in terms of the level of depth and breadth of the topics we've discussed. So
Mm,
there's nothing really to add to that. And if yeah, as the second part of that, if guys do want to know more about any of it or do want to have a discussion, as I said, like, yeah, I make my time available for free to everyone, one time, right? So there's a one free call for everybody who wants it, and that's a policy that I've had for 3 years. So yeah, if you want to dig into any of that or even to just touch base, then you can do so. I don't know how you'd like to do that. If you want to put a link to that in the description, or if you just want to give them
yeah.
my address or whatever. But
Your website or your Instagram or your YouTube,
yeah,
where can people find you
okay,
online?
maybe let's do it this way. YouTube is Fluid Social. That's FluidSocial. And
Hmm.
in the description of every video, there's a link to that one call, right? Because I want my audience to be able to talk to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I would recommend. I'm also running a community at the moment, but I don't want to push guys towards a community that they don't know anything about. I don't want to be that guy who's like, come and join my. So I get it. I don't want to
Yeah.
get you to sign up to something you don't understand. You don't know me. You haven't seen my content, so I wouldn't expect you to go there. Just feel free to jump on a call with me, see what my channel's about. There's loads of demonstration videos there. We've been vlogging like cold approach for ages, just doing approach and then talking about how it was, how they went, and guys seem to find that incredibly inspiring and relatable. So check them out if you're interested, and get in touch with me if you want. And yeah, take the first step.
Yeah, check out Fluid Social, guys. Go on YouTube right now. Check it out. Great stuff, great videos. And yeah, it was a pleasure, Sam. Thanks for coming in. I hope you guys that are listening to this, you got some value out of it as well. And yeah, don't hesitate to book a call with Sam. Check out some of the resources in the description of this podcast too. Plenty of resources that I can give you for free as well, myself, or if you want to learn how to approach, etc. And yeah, we're here to help, guys. So either reach out to Sam, reach out to myself. The main thing is if you want to learn this skill, it's 100% learnable. And as long as you have the right guidance, you have the right accountability, you believe you can do it, sky's the limit. I mean, you can start with being shy, timid, not having any dates, spending all your evenings alone, to getting multiple dates, finding your dream partner, getting all the abundance you want. It's possible. It's a skill set like anything else, and you have to train it. And nowadays, success with women is not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. It's a necessity these days to learn this, because otherwise the dating market is so competitive that if you don't learn this, you're going to be left with the crumbs. Like, you're going to be left with the leftovers, and you're not going to find any high quality woman that's going to spend time with you if you don't learn this at a high level. So that's one thing. So thanks, Sam, for being here, and yeah, was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate the great questions and the conversation. We should do it again.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So thanks, and yeah, see you guys.